thank you for watching. This is a do-over because the first time I made this video, yeah, I think my head will be in the picture. The first time I made this video, I forgot to put on my YouTube uniform. I feel I owe it to dress up at least in a polo. This time I found this shirt that I don't think I've worn in more than 10 years. So the way I found this video is, I'd already watched it once, and then I made one of my many reviews or comments on a Kent Hovind debate video, and in the comments section to that video, Bill Ludlow, who debated against Kent Hovind, suggested I watch his debate. And here we go. Kent Hovind debated Bill Ludlow. The debate topic was supposed to be focused on human evolution, proof that humans and apes have a common ancestor. Bill Ludlow was the first one to talk. He identified himself as a science activist and educator. He told that he did not have a lot of degrees or any degrees. But he does volunteer and spend a lot of time at this one museum. He said there have been 400 individuals of Lucy's species found. He claimed that knuckle walking happened with apes after the split. That doesn't make sense to me, to go from two-legged to knuckle walking. Being a two-legged and two-armed is very helpful in doing a lot of things. He claimed that no modern human bones are found in the same layers of dirt as these other Australopithecines, Africanus, the other things he was talking about. Australopithecines, he went through showed bones of these different people and artists' reconceptions. But what if the Australopithecines were just humans, maybe slightly different humans, but humans? We see now there's a variety of shape in the heads of people, and sometimes people are born slightly deformed. He showed what he called Oda-1 tools, and he told how many millions of years old they were. But to call those things tools, wow, they looked to me like they could have just been rocks. And Neanderthals, he said they were not stupid. That's an example of a changing theory. They used to say Neanderthals were stupid, half human. Now he's saying they're not stupid. Well, can you keep your story straight? Isn't science supposed to be something we can believe because you search for the truth? He made the claim that we have 5% of human DNA is Neanderthal DNA. That would make Neanderthal humans. He brought up the Denisovians, which are based on a couple of teeth and a finger bone. Very scant evidence of them. He claimed that there are ways to measure how old something is where you don't need to know the parent element. With some of these radiometric dating techniques, you need to know how much of this one kind of uranium or rubidium or strontium was in the element at first to be able to use that technique. But he's claiming there's something called electron spin and oxygen isotope measuring that don't require an apparent element, the knowledge of how much of the different molecules or an apparent element. I'm skeptical of that. And measuring speed of something means you need to know starting and ending. Speed is how far and how much time. If we're talking about rotting, if you can measure how much rotting or decay something has and how much time. Yeah. He used the term human species, which I think undermines his point. If all these things are a human species, that doesn't prove a common ancestor. It could just be a variety of people, like how we get a variety of dogs. My dog's litter right now, my old dog, there were 7 puppies that came out of the bitch and 7 different color patterns. 4 of them survived, and as they got older we could see different fur textures from the same parent. There's some variety there. Maybe that's what we're seeing with these bones. He talked about baboons and made a comparison between baboon separation and evolution and human evolution. But the baboons are still baboons, so they didn't change into something else. He did not talk about proof, did not show proof of the change from something different. He made a list of what things we can learn from the bones we find in the ground. There are things we can learn from the bones we find in the ground. And Kent Hovind doesn't deny that. Kent Hovind believes some people are making claims that we can't actually know about the bones in the ground, but Kent Hovind does not believe there's nothing you can learn from the bones in the ground. Most of the list that Bill Ludlow put up was good. But he did write some things on that list that do not belong on that list, or they are not the good parts of that list. He said we know where they lived. No, we don't know where something lived because people can walk around. Now, with modern technology, it's even harder to be certain where somebody lived based on where they're buried. But you just know where they were buried. You can sometimes know about how they were buried, depending on what they're buried with or things like that. He said you can see primitive and derived traits in the bones. This is presupposing and pushing your beliefs onto the bones. You already have to believe there is something such as a primitive or a derived trait for that. So that is a subjective thing. He claimed he quoted 2 scientific laws, but he didn't explain them. And let's see. He claimed there are 200 layers of dirt above Lucy, and demanded Kent Hovind should be able to explain where all those layers are. He used that as proof of how old Lucy is. Let's see. I think at one point in this debate he talked about the scientific principle or theory that if something is lower in the ground, it's older. And there is some truth to that theory. Of course, something lower is older. Unless everything's buried at the same time in a massive flood and things are getting sorted in the water based on density. If there's a massive flood and it's very murky water, but it's not solid dirt, or depending on the thickness of the mud of the water, maybe a very watery mud, could let things that float up to the top before, solidifying. Let's see, how to test recent layers, modern humans. Bill Ludlow made the ridiculous and false claim that macroevolution becomes microevolution. If you believe the one, you have to believe the other because it's just a continuation of the same thing. No, it isn't. There's a difference between a variety of within the species or speciation, wherein maybe all the bears in the earth had one common bear ancestor. But they don't have a common ancestor with horses. They're a different kind. Bill Ludlow denounced the very frequent ape-to-man drawing that you've probably seen it on a t-shirt. Chimpanzee, it's starting to walk upright, then it's a big-headed, hunched-over caveman, and then a modern man. And sports fanatics have a version of that shirt where the next one is a person playing the sport. I denounce Bill's denouncing of that shirt. That's what they believe, isn't it? That there's something non-human becoming human? Oh yeah, one thing I noticed is that the skulls of Bill Ludlow were not uniform in color. Almost all of them, maybe all of them. They were not uniform in color. Which makes me think they were a mixture of the bones that had been found, busted up, and clay to hold it all together and to fill in the gaps, because that has definitely happened sometimes, where there's not a complete skull. So, there's definitely some inferring there and some belief behind somebody that's influencing how they make that skull look when it's a broken up skull that needs to have clay filling in the gaps. Bill Ludlow claimed that brain size is an absolute indicator of intelligence. There are some very smart people that have smaller than average heads now who should feel offended at that. Somebody could have a smaller than average head and have a high brain capacity and be intelligent. The average woman has a smaller head than the average man. But there are very intelligent women among the billions of women on the earth with those smaller heads. Kent Hovind had his turn to make his first presentation in the debate. He pointed out the list that Bill Ludlow put up did not prove that the bones had any children. That's one part of the religion of evolutionism, or the hypothesis of evolutionism, is everything having a common ancestor, and so to prove it you would have to proof, not just belief. Proof would be seeing something give birth to something different, since that's what happened in the past. But we don't see that. Kent Hovind pointed out that there are some bones in our body that continually grow our whole life. And so that Neanderthals could be people that just lived a long time, so they had a little bit different of a shape from the bones growing from their whole life. Kent Hovind claimed that the religion of evolutionism, or the goal, or the end goal of evolutionism, or what they believe is happening, is us becoming gods. And he said that was the devil's lie to Eve. Here Kent had a bad point. For several reasons, but no, the evolutionists don't believe we're going to become gods in the sense, at least, of the word of being all-powerful that can tell the earth to do things and it moves around for you. And one of the arguably most ignored verses in Scripture is after Adam and Eve have eaten of the fruit, and God comes to the earth and finds out about it. Well, he probably already knew. And after God confronts them, then God says to himself, or the other God, they have become as us. So they did become like God in a way. Let's see. Kent pointed out that there are cavemen now. Living in a cave does not prove a lack of intelligence. It's just where some people live. He had a picture of Osama bin Laden up because it's believed Osama bin Laden was living in caves in the Tora Bora region of Afghanistan or Pakistan, close to the border of those two countries. And yeah, if you're just moving into an area for the first time and it doesn't have any people there, so nobody could have built a house for you, and there are caves, you might start living in the cave until you get to build something. It doesn't mean you're stupid. Kent Hovind pointed out there have been many hoaxes of these ape-man and half-man and primitive man bones. Sometimes there was an actual bone, but there was some additions done. So that's a good reason to be skeptical when they keep supporting their theory with hoaxes and fakes. Nebraska Man was based on one pig tooth, and they drew what he looked like, and they drew what his wife looked like, and they claimed they knew how they lived their lives off of one tooth, which later was proven to be a pig tooth. Ridiculous. Piltdown Man, of course, was a half ape, half human skull. They took a part human skull and part of an ape skull and mixed it all together and then buried it so it could be found and look like it was an old skull. Okay, so Kent Hovind claims Neanderthals are humans which were old and or diseased. Perhaps rickets from not getting enough sun. Kent pointed out that the whole theory of evolution is from rock, which got rained on for millions of years, which then dissolved into the water, becoming human. Kent Hovind pointed out that all these models for the primitive man have dark skin, and somebody should be offended by that. Yeah, and Kent Hovind had a picture of an Aboriginal skull and a European skull, and there were differences in the skulls of these fully modern humans. Slight difference in the skull does not prove something's a half-human. Yeah, Kent Hovind pointed out that all these things that we don't have now is a demonstration of extinction. So even if Neanderthals weren't actually just humans with diseases, or old humans that had their bones continually grow in some parts of their body through their whole life, what we see here is extinction. We're going through a big list of things we don't have now, but we have the bones. That's not creating something. That's not you proving something being created. Kent Hovind went on a tangent here that has nothing to do with the debate topic. How do you tell what's right and wrong? Yeah, Kent Hovind didn't stick to the debate topic for this one. You can come to right conclusions about how to behave, even if you don't have the right understanding about the past. Then it was Bill Ludlow's turns. He claimed populations evolve, not individuals. No. That's so stupid for him to say that. If a population does something, we should see evidence of individuals doing it. You know, the population votes on who's going to be the president and the senators and mayors in places where they have those elections. Are you saying that there's no individual voters then? No, when the population votes for so-and-so to be the next mayor, there are individuals going through the voting process, whether it's an old-fashioned ballot you put into the box or a computerized version where you go hit the machine. Individuals are doing it. In war, there are armies that are attacking each other. Well, how does that happen? Do no individuals shoot or slice or stab at the other? Of course, so individuals are doing the shooting when there's a war and armies are attacking each other. It's not an army attacks, but, well, no individuals actually attacked because it was the army that attacked. What did I wrote? Other evolution. I wrote a note here, I don't remember what he was talking about. He claimed that dogs becoming dogs is proof of evolutionism. That is stupid or a lie. No, it isn't. Proof of something that you claim could make a dramatic change, a big change from one thing to the other, would be seeing the change happen. Now, dogs becoming dogs, if you're saying dogs becoming dogs proves evolution because you say evolution happens too slowly, well, dogs becoming dogs is also predicted by the other side of the debate. So no, you don't prove evolutionism by things not changing. You need to show the change to claim you have proof of the change. Bill Ludlow claimed he doesn't have the burden of proof about evolution. Yeah, no, if you're the one claiming what your idea is scientific and not religious, and you want it in science textbooks in public schools, the burden of proof is on you. I accept the burden of proof for anything that I want to be put into a science textbook. And I don't want anything about origins put into science textbooks for public schools because that's not something we can be certain about by testing and knowing and seeing. Because we do have witnesses of what happened, and it's God, and God told us. But I accept that that's maybe not scientific enough, since we're talking about a God telling one person a long time ago and not going on the lecture circuit around the world to tell us face to face. He found an example of a bone used in court because Kent Hovind says, sometimes he says the bones found in the dirt would not be accepted in a court of law. And then sometimes he throws in the qualifier honest court of law because what if there's a corrupt judge out there or a judge that's prejudiced or decides that he wants one side to win or lose a debate? In that case, there could be something that was accepted and that shouldn't have been. And Kent Hovind's got a good point there. Since the bones are just in the dirt, you don't see them giving birth. The bones might be the bones of somebody who, died old and single. But this case that Bill Ludlow was talking about, I haven't had a chance to look into it. I'm too busy. But there was a murder case that got solved, and there were crushed bones and DNA that were part of this case or the murder. That would be an example of finding out what we can find out from bones. See, they did not prove from the bones that this girl was a common ancestor with an elephant, had a common ancestor with an elephant. In the court of law, they did not try to find out or make a claim that she had children because of her bone shape or something. And I'm sure there were more than just bones. I'm sure there were people that knew her. So they didn't just find a bone and then lock somebody up. They found a bone after there was probably a missing persons report, and investigators interviewed the people who knew her, the people who had witnessed her, and interviewed more people. So it was not just they found a bone and they knew stuff. He disputed what Kent Hovind said about a brow ridge growing. He claimed it's a chin that keeps growing your whole life. Since he was making up other stuff, I have to wonder if he was right on that. It makes sense that where your bones are pulled on by your muscle attachments, that there's going to be growing there. He claimed Neanderthals were not modern humans. He accused Kent Hovind of using a straw man logical fallacy, or a straw man illegitimate debating technique. Of course, straw manning means you are arguing against the thing your opponent does not believe or did not say. When Kent Hovind talks about the beginnings of things, and abiogenesis, and the formation of planets and stars and solar systems. But Kent Hovind is not straw manning when he does that. He is quoting science textbooks that say that. Anyone who says that's not part of the theory, if you have integrity, you should be trying to get that out of the textbooks and not accusing people of straw manning who are quoting what the book says. Never proved Neanderthal children. Yeah. Kent Hovind. Let's see. He accused Kent Hovind of never proving something about Neanderthal children. Common designer, counterpoint. Kent Hovind. Beginnings. Yeah. Let's see. Kent Hovind said that Bill Ludlow never proved Neanderthals had children. Comedy designer, or different children. Alright. Kent Hovind made the point that similar body parts could be there because of a designer and are not absolute proof of evolutionism. And he's got a good point here. He brought up the example of Microsoft PowerPoint and Microsoft Word. There probably are similar lines, similar computer code between those two programs. Would that prove that one evolved from the other over a million years? No. Something works and somebody's making something, they're going to use what works. You know, once a creator gets a heart that works, a skin that works, a bone shape that works, a hand shape that works, there's nothing wrong with with keeping those parts that work when you're making something else. So common parts could be from a common designer. Then they had the back and forth where they talked to each other and questioned each other. Bill Ludlow, Kent Hovind disputed where things are buried is that proof of whether they live together by asking if there was a worldwide flood now, would chickens and people be buried together? And so Bill Ludlow at first said it was wrong to say that people and chickens don't live together because their bones weren't found together, and he said he didn't know if there were claimed Kent Hovind was wrong about what kind of bones are found there, whether they're chicken bones found with people. And then he said he didn't know if chicken bones were found with people. Well, Bill Ludlow was being inconsistent there. Kent Hovind pointed out that in a worldwide flood, things will be buried together that live together. So if there is a worldwide flood right now, there might be a few chickens' bones buried with people that were about to get eaten by people. And a few sporadic chickens by people who have a chicken in their yard but aren't chicken farmers. But the chicken farmers, where there are thousands of chickens, well, there's going to be a lot of chicken bones there, and maybe one farmer, or maybe no people. So being buried together does not prove whether things lived on the earth at the same time. Bill Ludlow was asking something about if Kent Hovind believes the bones are found, or believes that human bones have not been found in the same layers as these other Australopithecines, Africanus, and Homo erectus. But Kent Hovind pointed out that researchers might be dishonest about things. Everybody has a bias, that's a fact. Some people would definitely be willing to lie to support what they believe. And so Kent Hovind's skeptical that there haven't been human bones found in the same layers as these other things because of that fact. Bill Ludlow says chicken bones plus human bones is not equal living together. Yeah. So, Bill Ludlow demanded Kent Hovind be able to name what is the last layer of dirt on the earth from Noah's flood, or sedimentary rocks from Noah's flood. Kent Hovind pointed out he doesn't know. He doesn't need to know. But Kent Hovind pointed out there are some certain similar rock formations that like cover almost entire continents. He said all 48 states. Maybe it's only all 50 states, 48. Maybe it's less than that, but still most of the states in North America have similar layers of limestone. And that's a good evidence for a worldwide flood. If you've got a vast layer that's the same, then that could mean that during the worldwide flood, these same pebbles and rocks and sand with the same density all came together and made the same layer. Let's see. Kent Hovind brought up the point that when you exercise, your bones get stronger, unless you're swimming. But you know, when you exercise, your muscles get stronger to get ready for the next time you do it, and your bones get stronger too. Kent Hovind used Arnold Schwarzenegger as an example because he's a famous former bodybuilder. Maybe he still does enough exercise to call bodybuilder now, I'm not sure. But the bones will get stronger to get ready for the next thing. And so Kent Hovind is saying that people that have lived a long time and had to do manual labor, they're going to have stronger bones. And he predicts if you look at the bones of different people, you'll see that the Neanderthals were people that lived a long time and had a long chance to build up their bones. And Bill Ludlow changed the subject. Kent Hovind talked about who has the burden of proof, and it is the one who wants his theory or his belief to be taught in scientific textbooks and science classrooms in public schools. Bill Ludlow brought up the issue of radiometric dating. Kent Hovind didn't say carbon dating is always wrong or never accurate, but he says it's not 100% accurate. And he can point to examples where there were things that have been carbon dated, that you end up with something that was alive, carbon dated for thousands of years old, but it was like killed for the test. It should show like no age. Bill Ludlow showed one of Kent Hovind's slides and said it was wrong. Which slide was he showing? Kent Hovind asked Bill Ludlow if we ever get an improper date, an inaccurate date from carbon-14 testing, and Bill Ludlow said he didn't know. Kent Hovind pointed out that diamonds have carbon-14 in them, and the evolutionary story is that diamonds are millions of years old or something like that, and there should not be any carbon-14 in something millions of years old. We're talking about diamonds here. Diamonds would not absorb things from outside. It's not like you could say, well, this bone absorbed carbon-14 from the soil or from something else. Bill Ludlow, well, I think one of the slides that he claimed was wrong, and Bill Ludlow claimed that Kent uses that was wrong, is one about dating of mammoths. That this one mammoth had 2 samples taken from it, and it was dated very different ages. Maybe that one was wrong. Maybe it was 2 different mammoths that were dated. But Bill Ludlow brought up the other things. Kent Hovind's got a slide presentation where he talks about a seal that was killed and dated, and snails that were carbon dated. So they should have given you a recent date because they were killed right away. But you get dates for thousands of years old for these things. Let's see. Kent Hovind pointed out that he gets this information from Science and Arctic or Antarctic Journal, a science journal. When Kent Hovind got these numbers about carbon dating, he didn't find them in like the Bible or some non-science source. He found it in those science journals. And let's see. Kent Hovind asked if let's see, why do we get the wrong date when we carbon-14 date living animals? That's a good question. If you know from other sources the age of something, like you killed it right away, so you know how old it is, or we can be pretty certain about some historical records about recent past. Well, if you know how old something is because of that, then that's a good way to actually know it. Your dating technique should match up with that and not contradict it. Bill Ludlow failed to explain why carbon-14 dating doesn't work on living things. Yeah, he was saying, no, but you don't understand how carbon-14 dating works if you think we can test a living thing. That's stupid. No, if it works, it'll work on anything. Maybe it won't be precise and give you be precise about low measurements, but if it's accurate, it won't give you a wrong date the wrong way. For example, I own a vehicle which has an odometer. It tells me how far I've gone. That odometer, if I use it to try to measure how far I've gone when I'm just parking, or maybe crossing the street because I'm in a neighborhood where you have to park on one side of the street on certain days so the street sweeper can drive down the street and suck up the trash in the curb. My odometer is not going to be precise about that. But it's not going to tell me that I drove 1 mile or 10 miles or 100 miles when I was just pulling over and down the street 20 feet or something like that. Or 40 feet. So even if if carbon-14 were not precise for lower dates, it still shouldn't give us the thousands of years for recently killed things that Kent Hovind has found it giving us. Claims to understand, Bill Ludlow claimed to understand how the nuclear bombs that have happened on this world affect carbon-14. He committed a strawman fallacy by claiming things don't give birth to something different in one generation. Kent Hovind has never, that I've heard, and I've heard a lot of him, so he probably has never, said that in one generation you go from half ape, half human to human, or single cell organism to human. He never said in one generation that happens. All he never said is believe that in one generation that happens. But if you're giving a summary of something, it's okay to tell the beginning and the end points that somebody else believes about something. And the same, different, and now. Yeah, Bill Ludlow was asked by Kent if things are different now. Like, why are things happening the same now? Same kind of animal giving birth. But in the past, it wasn't like that. And Bill Ludlow didn't have a good answer to that question. Bill Ludlow, several times in this debate, used the word understand, accusing Kent Hovind of not understanding and saying people who think like Kent Hovind don't understand, things like that. When you should have said believe. I hope I've never done this. I promise I'll try to never do this. To lie about somebody by saying they don't understand when the correct word is don't believe. Okay. Kent Hovind pointed out farmers all over the world, farmers expect to get the same kind of thing. They don't want their cow to give birth to a lizard. And they don't get that. If they ever did get that, that would be newsworthy. We would find out about that if there was a farmer that planted a corn seed and got an oak tree. Kent Hovind talked about how bacteria are still bacteria. When they have done tests on them, they don't get the bacteria to change into a non-bacteria. The one test I'm aware of, they went like 40,000 or 60,000 generations because bacteria reproduce quickly, so you can have a lot of generations. And if it's possible for mutations to result in a dramatic change to something else, then you would see the bacteria turn into something else. But they don't. Kent Hovind was asked why there are so few human fossils, and his explanation is, when God made the earth, it was full of plants and animals, but only had 2 people to start off with. And people probably avoided being buried in a flood. People are more mobile and smarter than a lot of animals, so the people back then that were killed in a flood probably would have, climbed up out of the mud and swam around until they couldn't swim and drowned. They would have outsmarted some of the animals that wouldn't have been doing that. Bill Ludlow claimed that things change, but we don't see those things changing, so it does not belong as a scientific theory. Thank you for watching this video. You have a good day.